Fine.
Really?
I got like 3 or 4 laughs from it. I could consider it a win.
That was terrible.
The only one I could remember.
You want to talk about fishing?
I guess so. Are we doing it?
Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Tim Broom with Half Hitch Tackle. This is Capt Mark Tim with 30A Light Tackle. And tonight we're going to do something a little different and maybe teach y'all about a whole new fishery that probably most of y'all are not taking advantage of. You know, probably everybody's kind of going, why are we talking about offshore fishing in November? Well, you know, the county put the FADs out there. The FAD's 5 years old, 7 years old, something like that. Well, I don't think the FADs are the reason for this fishery, but they're a part of it. Years ago, so a little bit of history, we used to have a guy here he was more of a commercial mackerel fisherman. His name was Charlie Dawsey. But at the end of mackerel season, he would start moving off further and further offshore, kind of chasing the mackerels where they were up on the, like the past 2 weeks has been the best king mackerel fishing of the year by far. And these fish, the kings, will move further and further offshore as we get cooler and cooler weather. Well, he would started fishing for them all, years ago, and then as they moved out towards the edge, he started to catch some wahoos in with them. And then he started fishing a little bit further offshore. Well, he kind of pioneered a fall and early winter wahoo fishery, but he was also a hunter, so as soon as hunting season came around, he would kind of quit fishing for them. But at the time, we didn't realize that those wahoo and those tunas and those mahis were there all year. Well, what the fads have done is they've offered opportunity for people to go in the winter. If someone would have came to me 5 years ago and said, okay, tell me, I want to go to Destin, when is the best mahi wahoo dolphin fishing? Well, I'd have probably said late April till mid-July. Well, if you ask me today, it's
Now.
starts in November and it really runs till about April. That is the best. If you go back and look at the fishing reports where I've posted the last 4 or 5 years and go back on Destin Offshore and the Gulf Fad fishing page and just go back and start looking at pictures. The catches of wahoo and mahi, tunas we all know have been there all winter forever. But the wahoo and the mahi catches, they're tremendous. In June, you go wahoo fishing, hook 3, catch 2, that's a great day. These guys fishing this winter fishery, they're averaging 8, 10, 12, 14, wahoo, that same number of quality mahi fishing. The water temperature out there, when we start getting out there 50, 60, 70, 80 miles throughout the whole little area where the fads cover, that water temperature doesn't change much all year. It's fairly stable. Now the surface water, that first 10 feet, it gets super, super hot in August and September. But you go 10 feet down and it's a very consistent temperature. It's the same thing in the winter, that the surface water will be very cold. But 10 feet down, it's not. And those fish are there. And so what the fads have done, they've given us a reason to go. But you can get very hung up on the fads and run out there and not have a good day. So it's not only about the fads. It's about water temperature and water clarity. If the fads are all in dirty water, but the pretty water is pushed over on the Pensacola steps and the elbow and that area, you're going to find the fish in that prettier water. Same thing, that water may be pushed over to the west or to the east, and it might be out there south of the Ozark. So the pretty water is just as important as the fads themselves. If the fads are in dirty water, you need to have a subscription to Hilton's, or the other good one is Rip Charts. On this one I had the name covered up in the other one, but the fads, the spur is right here, so the fads are going to sit right along in here. But paying attention to those, I have a subscription to both. They're both just under $200. I actually like Rip Charts better on a mobile device, and I like Hilton's better on a desktop. And for $400 a year for a subscription to these two services, one failed offshore trip, missed the bite by 5 miles, you spent way more than that in fuel.
Yep.
So, it's something that you need to be subscribing to.
Not to throw a wrench in your speech, but what do you think the impact was about seasons? So yeah, I mean, I still feel like the new guy here, even though I've been here long enough now. But looking at it, like I missed the great cobia runs down the beach, and I missed all that stuff. So thinking about wahoo and especially mahi, for me, yeah, they're around during the summer, but I think now, and we were just talking about this in the back, there's bigger ones around, and we caught great mahi close to the beach too. But what kind of impact do you think it has that, okay, now maybe boats aren't targeting snapper and grouper and amberjack due to closures, so maybe now more people are focusing on these fish that may have been here all along that people are just starting to figure out?
I think you're 100% correct. I think these fish have been out there for hundreds and thousands of years.
Well, a couple less than there were earlier this summer.
Yeah, but I think they've been there for hundreds of years. We just never went and fished for them in the wintertime. It's cold. It's a tough little run out there. You have to really pick. You have to really watch weather days because we do have more fronts in the winter than we do in the summer. So you have to pay more attention to weather to pick and choose good days to go that far. But there are plenty of good days in the winter. And then, as a side note to all that, we have another winter tuna fishery that most people around here completely ignore. But from about Christmas time through mid-February, that whole little area down there off of Navarre, where they put in those Navarre kayak reefs, there is an incredible blackfin tuna bite down there that's actually better than the tuna bite that we're in right now, where we're catching them out there on the south edge and the knuckle and around the Ozark and the southwest edge. That whole area out there produces a lot of really good fall blackfin tuna fishing. But that 6 to 7 week period, the coldest part of the year, those blackfins push all the way up on the beach. The kayak guys down there that beach launch their kayaks and fish those areas, it is not uncommon for them to catch 4 to 6 fish a morning out of their kayak. So that's
And there's already been, I mean, the piers caught blackfin already.
Yeah, all of the piers have been catching blackfins now for about 2 or 3 weeks. Navarre Pier is so much closer to the deeper water. Their tuna fishing is generally a little better than Pensacola or Okaloosa or Panama City. But all the piers have been catching them. Navarre's had several days where they're real tight-lipped on their fishing reports down there because they don't want too many people on the pier, but they've had days they've caught 20. Which is exceptionally good blackfin tuna fishing from a pier.
And I think I say this every seminar, but now with social media, you can't catch a fish without posting it. So it helps a lot to watch some of these reports and know, like, okay, bites going on the beach right now. I guess I'm fishing close to the pier. Yes, sir. Can you see it on there? Are you getting on active, Captain?
Yes, sir.
All right, you know people are watching this and recording it. Glad we were using your phone and not mine.
It shows, you can't see that.
Oh, here we go. I'm just going to stand right here for a second while you're doing that.
So these are the Navarre kayak reefs right here. And that whole little reef section, there's about 500 pyramids in there. So that holds bait all winter long. And that's where the blackfins will be. But if you go straight offshore, to the southwest, it's the closest place to the southwest edge. Oh, that's not what you wanted to do, dummy.
I got it on mine. I don't think it's that far.
It's not. I don't even think it's much over 20.
Yeah, right. Off the beach, those reefs are.
The kayak reefs are a mile.
They're 16 miles from the edge.
Yes. 17 miles from the beach to the edge. It's the closest place.
Yeah, 15.6 off the edge.
So that's what brings those fish so close down there. You know, if you went from Okaloosa, like off the Okaloosa Pier, all the way to the south edge, you're probably 25, 28 miles. So that's why you can go and catch them there. Lost my page here.
Plus, I think too, I mean, with the water clarity, at least especially when we were looking for tarpon all summer, the water was a lot better. I guess not impacted as much from Pensacola or Choctawhatchee Bay. There wasn't nearly as much water pouring out that made it all the way over there.
Yeah, because Navarre is really about halfway between the passes, so the water is much clearer.
It was funny. There was one day where we were specifically, and this has nothing to do with wahoo or mahi or tuna or whatever we're talking about tonight, but we were looking for them. Nothing. Found a solid line where the clear water was. There were tarpon. I couldn't catch any of them, but they were sitting directly on the clean side, right there.
But so this is a fishery, you know, I know a lot of people shut it down at the end of October. The rodeo's over. Okay, we're not going to fish anymore till spring. But some of the best offshore and trolling or, you know, whether you want to go out there and live bait them, troll for them, chunk for them, jig for them, all the different methods work. It's just like summer fishing. The only thing that I would tell you is, you know, it is like summer fishing in July, August, and September when it's very hot. You really need to have a downrigger because the downrigger, you can set up your spread in the downrigger and get that initial bite down there in the warmer water. And as that fish comes to the surface, you can still have surface lines out because those fish will come into that colder water and hit surface rod. So a downrigger is a super way to do it. If you don't have a downrigger, you know, Mark brought one of his high-speed trolling rigs tonight. You can actually use a bent butt high-speed trolling rig as a poor man's downrigger. We can put a 10-pound ball on that and drop it down and slow troll it just like a downrigger. It's definitely harder to reel the ball up because the spools are small, but it works as a poor man's downrigger. You can troll with it as a high-speed rig on the way out, and once you get out there, turn it into a downrigger if you don't have one.
I don't know. We tried this.
For like 8 minutes.
No, we drove at least 6 miles.
6 miles. That's our grand total of trolling this year. We trolled 6 miles. You can tell neither one of us like to troll very much. I know how to do it. We do it. I mean, I do run some trips on other people's boats where we actually go trolling, but.
Should we go ahead and get that story out of the way now? All right. We knew we were doing the wahoo seminar, so we were like, all right, we should probably go wahoo fish and at least know what's actually going on out there. We get on my, and you guys, I mean, most of you know me by now. Like, I am not, I mean, my company's 30A light tackle. It's not 30A anchors. So we get out there, we're like, all right, let's troll around. Let's just go try. And maybe my timing's off on my story, but it sounds better. Troll for all of 6 miles. We go, this is stupid. We get to the spot we want to fish, reel everything in, put the trolling motor down, throw out a spinning rod with a single hook and fluoro, and hooked a wahoo. So first place wahoo in the Destin Fishing Rodeo came off of this. So in typical light tackle fashion, right? So yeah, I'll let you talk about trolling. I don't know how that works. Just kidding. Oh yeah,
we had a lot of herring on it.
yeah, but just yeah, just on a flat line right off the back, just pitched out a herring, and then damn thing started running off, and we were like, I was like, I think we like snagged a remora or something. Like it just wasn't fighting right. And then we have a video of it, and I don't think we should play it because of the language that we both.
Well, I think I can knock the language out.
It was even Tim was like, "Holy, like what is that a wahoo?"
Actually, I thought it was a king at first. I was like, dang, what a mackerel.
So it was interesting for sure. But that's the thing. I mean, having a flat line out, having the right bait, and spinning gear. End of wahoo seminar, right? We got very lucky. That 36 one, I think, is it. Yeah, just on a spinning rod. And I'm glad you have the sound off because there was a little bit of, I felt pretty bad on this one too, because there was we pulled up and we were in a pretty public location that there were maybe 70 other boats around us that had been there chumming all morning. And we literally just pulled up, put the motor down, pitched the bait out. And then of course, like you guys know, I get a little excited out there, but we're like, holding this fish up in the air, screaming and taking pictures of it. And we look over and there's a guy in the boat next to us who's like, no, yeah, and that's the thing. So like we were looking for tunas. So I mean, you get enough cut bait in the water, you get enough stuff. But on bites like that, when everybody knows about it and there's 70 boats out, you worded it best. Like there's no point in chumming because with all these boats around, they just dropped 400 live cigar minnows in the water. So just a fun story.
But you can, for all these wahoos and these dolphins and the tunas and stuff in the wintertime, you can troll for them, you can chunk for them just like you do in the summertime. You can live bait fish for them. You can
get throwing top water at them and not getting a bite.
It's the same thing that we would do all summer, and it will work so much better than fishing in the summertime. I promise you, there's more fish out there.
And now like I get a lot of calls from people that are like, hey, if I want to catch this, when's the best time for it? And for us, tuna. I mean, I love to eat tuna. I think wahoo and scamp are probably my two favorite fish to eat, but I love tuna. And we've had a lot of tuna over the last couple of weeks. But when people are like, hey, when's my best shot to do that? Like middle of summer? And on a smaller boat like mine, fishing state water on the beach? No. I'm like, okay, last year, I think last year, the tuna showed up like September, third week of September.
Yeah.
And I think my last one was almost May, if it wasn't May, in like 70 feet of water. So I tell them, I'm like, winter, it's colder. There's no boats out. Bait can be a little bit harder.
Bait is harder. It's definitely harder to get, your cigar minnows and your herring, but tuna are very receptive to eat pinfish and ruby lips and squirrel fish. They will eat a lot of different things because especially in the wintertime, because that's the food source that's there. Now, if you are going to the fads, if you'll stop out there on some of the bigger metal, especially all these new things that the county is dropping out, there is we call them speedos. They look kind of like a cross between a cigar minnow and a bonita, but they'll be out there on the big metal structures. Get the bigger size bait rig, something with like a number 4 hook on it or a number 2 hook. String about 2 of those big bait rigs together and put you a 8-ounce bank lead on there and go out there and jig the big metal structures on the bottom and you'll catch them big old speedos. That's a really good, of course, wintertime bait. And then, of course,
you have trouble keeping those alive?
You do need a pretty good sized live well. I mean, a smaller, on a boat the size of Mark's, what your live was probably about 35 gallons.
It's pretty big.
I probably wouldn't put more than 24 to 36 of them in there at the most. But of course, just trolling just regular ballyhoo, just like we would in the summertime. Ballyhoos are great that time, in the wintertime also.
All right, so how do you catch them?
Catch them.
I said on my social media, I was just going to stand up here and try to learn from you.
Well, seeing how you love to troll so much, I haven't even ever used this is like for blackfin tunas.
I do like that bird.
Everybody has gone out there and used a straw rig in the springtime for Spanish. Well, this will work for blackfins or for yellowfin tunas. But this is just a straw rig on steroids. They don't make these for sale. If anybody wants to come up here, this is too long and cumbersome. It's got hooks everywhere. I don't really want to pass this around, but anybody's welcome to come up and look and see how I've made this. But this is just a super killer little blackfin tuna trolling rig. You can run I have a bird on this one to run it on top, but you could definitely run it with the bird on a downrigger. That wouldn't hurt anything at all.
I kind of like trolling a bird. If I had to troll anything, that's what it would be, because you can see it on the surface. It's just kind of like boring.
And then if you're out there around the fads and stuff, this is a little lure that I make. This one, we will pass this one around. Just be careful, it has a little treble hook on it. This is a great little lure for tunas and for mahis around the fads. It's heavy enough you can throw it and it will sink. It's just a 2-ounce trolling lead that I've painted and then attached a split ring and a treble hook with a little fuzz on it. If y'all want to pass that one around. It's a rig that's real easy to make and works good. I'm trying to get a couple manufacturers to make them, but I haven't really found anybody that wants to make them right now. White is one of the better colors. Any of the typical things that we would run in the summertime are regular, just smaller plastics. The deep diving rigs like on Mark's rod there, the Nomads, the Yozuri deep runners and the Rapala deep running lures. All that is just a mirror image of what you do in the summertime. There is no difference.
It's like the best eating fish too. Like, yeah, I mean, I think I have my opinion on snappers, and I like groupers a lot, but there's something different about getting home. I think Kayla, especially when I show up with wahoo and tuna and mahi, I think she's a little bit happier than 65 pounds of red snapper.
And a lot of people discount blackfin tunas. Blackfin tunas, if you bleed them, they are just like, there's not any difference between the minimum and the yellowfin. And the same thing goes down to the bonita. If you treat a bonita like it's a tuna, catch him, get him in the, with any tuna, the faster you get it in the boat, the better it's going to be. Tunas release enzymes as you're fighting them. And if you fight a tuna for a really long time, I don't care what kind of tuna it is, it will start to get a burnt flavor to it, even if you bleed it properly.
You can see it in the meat when you go to fillet it. There, and another thing too, like dropping it on the non-skid and having him flop around and just throwing him in a cooler, letting him flop around and slowly die in the ice, changes the consistency of the meat. And for whatever reason, the tunas this year, although they were, I think, especially that one that we caught the last day of the rodeo, Halloween or whatever, the day before, biggest blackfin tuna I've ever seen, but weighed lighter than other tunas that we caught. But the meat was different. It was a cleaner, it was just a better meat and no hemorrhage. And you, like I said, the hemorrhaging, you can see it in the meat when you do it. So you're right, dispatching a fish the right way and the right process changes.
So tell us we just caught a tuna, we caught a mahi, we caught a wahoo. What do we do?
Hold it up in the air and take pictures of it and show it off to everyone and scream out loud as you can. Typically, the first thing that I do is grab my brain spike. So on certain fish, you want a good picture of it before he loses his color, because they do lose their color fast, depending on what you do to it next. Like a wahoo loses its stripes fast, and like red snapper, they'll maintain their color, but a lot of things will change. So the first thing I do when I get it in the boat, if we're in the tournament or whatever, I'm not going to gaff it. But if we're just taking it home and eating it, okay, great. I mean, I run my business off of pictures and social media and stuff like that anyway, so a gaff hole through the side of it and blood squirting out everywhere doesn't look good. So we can be a little more careful sometimes when we're doing certain things for certain reasons. But if we were meat fishing, gaff it, hopefully in a spot that's not right in the middle of the best part of that loin, because there are different parts of the fish that taste different, and I fillet different, and I cut different, and we do different things with. But first thing I do is when we get it in is brain spike it. And there's a way, I think I don't think it's in Fish Rules app, but there are places online that show you basically where that fish's brain is. And EKG, on the EKG websites, they typically show you different species and where they are, but typically it's kind of where the lateral line matches up with the gill plate. Or if you can go in from between the eyes, there's a soft spot that you can find. And the more you do it and the more you play with it, you can actually find it feels a certain way when you spike it. But I'll brain spike it and kill the fish. So that I think it's humane. That fish, you kill it, he's done, he's not slowly dying in a cooler, burning up his own meat, getting things weird. And I think about it like a guy in the gym or a girl in the gym. Like, you get that lactic acid burn, there's stuff going on in your muscles, like your meat's just getting weird. As weird as it is to say that sentence out loud. So brain spike it and kill it. His mouth will open, that fish is dead. The next thing I'll do is I'll snip the gill at minimum. Just cut the gill and let his heart keep pumping the blood out. On the tail, where the tail comes up, on the bottom of the tail is an artery that runs all the way down. Typically, I'll just run a knife up to the spine and pop that artery to help the blood come out of the gills. And that heart will just pump it all out. So typically, if it was a tuna that we were concerned about having the right sushi and sashimi, I'd fill up a bucket with salt water, snip the gill, cut the artery on the tail, I'd brain spike it, cut the gill, cut the tail, stick it in that bucket, head first down. I don't like picking fish up by the tail too much, and I think you can see it when you go to fillet them. It'll actually kind of stretch the meat out, I've noticed, and have a weird consistency in the meat, especially on king mackerel. That wahoo had a little bit in it too, just because we were holding it up for pictures for so long. Brain spike it, cut the gill, cut the tail, put it in a bucket for a few minutes, let that blood pump out. And if you lift them out and the blood's still deep red, put them back in, lift them out, and when that blood starts getting a little bit less color, cool, he's in pretty good shape. And then there is a full process of EKG or Shinkei where you can actually cut down, and I find it a lot easier to go in from the tail than through the front. In the front, you basically have to find that brain cavity and get into the neural canal that way, but on the back, you can actually break the spine and see the neural canal and run a long piano wire down it and essentially just sever the connection between the meat and the central nervous system of the fish. So long story short, basically the meat doesn't know it's dead yet, and it is different in consistency. And then it sounds like a lot, and then I'll gut the fish and pack it full of ice and throw it in there. But it sounds like a lot, but realistically on the boat, it's kind of like, okay, spike, cut, throw them in a bucket, probably retie, pitch a bait out, come back, run the wire down it, gut it, throw it out and stick it in the ice. Maybe 5 seconds, but then Kayla gets a sushi dinner.
And
there's not many fish that I'll implement a captain's tax on, which is not a real thing. But I'm like, oh, guys, captain's tax.
I did that with Josh the other
That's
day.
what you told me.
I was like, well, I tell you, guys, I said, I don't normally take home fish that we catch. I mean, we catch snappers, groupers, jacks, whatever. I never bring fish home. It was like, we had 2 tunas of,
They're like, you want some of this amberjack? And we're like, no, you.
scamps and tunas, wahoos, and mahi. There's a captain's tax on those.
So on your boat, when you're out there, just remember that. Yeah, Mark said there's a captain's tax, or Tim said it too. Okay, so wait, well, back to fishing.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing with any of your offshore species, this is with any species really. When you first go out in the morning, put the ice in the ice box. But any of these fish, the more delicate the fish is, groupers, mingos, tunas, mahi, fish that are a little bit more tender, you don't want to just put those in the cooler on ice. If you're in a rally, when you first start fishing, throw all your fish in just do everything, get them in the cooler. As soon as you kind of get past that little rally and we're going to move on to our next spot that we're going to go fish, we need to take enough ice because you're going to melt part of it. But take the saltwater washdown hose, make sure you have a plug in the fish box, and turn that into a slush brine. That will lower the freezing point, that salt water will lower the freezing point of the ice, and those fish in slush will taste so much better than fish that are just laying on ice. When you put them in, if they're just laying on ice, even if you pull the ice out and try to make them in where there are layers of fish and ice, when you pull them out, they get discolored spots on them because the cold isn't all at the same place. But when you make a slush in the fish box, those fish are going to taste better. And I don't really care what fish it is.
Yeah, and try it with bonita because I think bonita is the best bait ever. And at the end of it, and plus they're fun to catch. So yeah, if you're looking for wahoo and tuna, you're probably going to be frustrated that you caught bonita, but hey, guess what? You have snapper and grouper bait for all summer. But try it on the bonita because bonita is a type of tuna. It's a false albacore tuna, and it handles the exact same way as a blackfin. So practice on it there. Do it to one and don't do it to another one. And then when you get to the fillet table and you're looking at your fish, look at how much of a drastic difference there is. And I mean, it's cool to go catch fish and kill stuff, and there's a lot of guys who just only care about posting a picture of a table full of dead fish or whatever. But I mean, why are you doing this? To eat it? Just for the picture? Like I just admitted that I do, but there's a lot more to it than that. And having just, I guess, a little more respect for the fish. And my mom just texted me and she was like, she's listening. She was like, "You're a fish murderer." She was like, "Brain spike it?" So I was like, I mean, I think it's a little bit more respectful than just taking that fish and going, "Oh, cool," and throwing him in the cooler and hitting him with a hammer.
Can I show that one for chunking?
Sure. I mean, that's the easiest, nicest way that I could chum without getting stuff everywhere.
So most people, when you make
as I wait for another text from my mom to come through now.
Most people, when they make their chunk baits, I'll see they cut the fillet off and then they start trying to cut everything up into chum. Mark took this photo the other day, and this is the best way to chunk bonita for tuna fishing and other things.
Which realistically just happened out of necessity because I was like, I need to get some chum in the water fast. How can I do this without getting a fillet table out? I just ran my knife down lengthways, ran it across the other way. I grabbed it here by the tail and just took my knife and ran it down the spine. And then chunks landed in the water and drifted out perfect. So I thought it was pretty clever.
No,
Look at the mess on my boat. Just a little bit of that was it.
It's great. I mean, it's a great way to make your chunk baits really fast and easy.
Just looking at it, I was like, before I chunk this, let me take a cool picture of it. Oh, for sure. Yeah, Kayla just said from up in the peanut gallery, the best chum. I'm only doing that because of the people online. All right, Tim, so how do we catch him?
So here's a good example of your downrigger. this one was really more for like jack fishing, but it's the same thing. Is if we drop our bait down here and we're running this 75 to 100 feet behind our ball, and we'll say that these are tunas instead of jacks or wahoos or mahi. We get that first bite, and we get this bite on. If we have rods up here in whether we're chunking up top or slow trolling live baits, as this fish comes up, the other fish are going to come up with him, and you will get more bites.
And I think too, at least from how the bite was for me for the last, 5 weeks maybe, they're coming in waves.
Yeah.
So I will admit, again, I don't troll that often. I mean, 6 miles over the last year. But they were coming in waves. So we'd hook 4 at the same time and then nothing for a half hour. And then we'd have 4 more at the same time and get lucky to get all 4 of them tangled up with each other and get one bonita to the boat out of all of it. But
and out there on the tuna grounds, they're doing that. They're just making big loops around because they're chasing the baits, and the baits are constantly running, and we're all out there live bait fishing and chunking for them. But the baits are moving, and the big areas out there where we tuna fish, it's 10 square miles. So they move around a fair amount, and so there is when you're doing that, it is a lot of waiting. Even at the fads, if we're going to go do that in the wintertime, there's going to be a lot of slow periods. But when it's it's slow for an hour, and then the next hour is just mass chaos.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
If you go on our Facebook page and type in quick rig ballyhoo, I've done, because live baits are hard to come by in the wintertime, I've done a complete how to quick rig ballyhoo for offshore fishing. And it is just so easy to do this and prepare all your ballyhoos the night before. I don't like trying to rig my ballyhoos on the way out. If I think we're going to use 24 of them, we're going to rig 24 the night before. But just go on our Facebook page and type in quick rig ballyhoo, and it will take you to a little article that runs you through the 12-step process of how to do that.
I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you brought ballyhoo here and tried to do it during the seminar, and then I think you wiped it all over all of our stuff. So I'm glad that this isn't a thing anymore. And then you did have like a little fake one that you used.
I have a little fake ballyhoo here, but he just doesn't look very. I was going to pass him around. We'll pass him around. If your ballyhoo looked like this little fake one right here, and he was this crooked, see if we can straighten. Well, that made him a little straighter.
Tim's the same way on the boat. He's like, I don't know about this one, but we should try it.
No, if it's not
and
right.
I don't know what it is about Tim, but he can catch some fish.
But that's the quick rig ballyhoo rig with a fake.
That doesn't look
ballyhoo.
bad.
That one I got him straighter. He's better now.
It's a tiny little ballyhoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, there's the thing that will cost you more fish than anything, bad line on your reel, bad drag, bad knots. You need to, those are the things that you need to check all the time. And I am picky about that on the boat.
Too much drag?
Too much, not enough.
I don't know how many times we yell back and forth. I'm like, how tight is this drag? And I think it happened with the Wahoo. Because I threw it out and the drag was super loose. And then when it hit, that guy just grabbed it and started fighting it. And I was like, how's the drag? And you checked it? And I was like, don't touch it. Like wherever it is now, it's where it's going to stay. I don't care how long this takes, but don't touch the drag now.
Yeah. I cranked a fair amount of heat on him.
I thought, because I put my hand on it and I pulled it out, I was like, just let it be. So so Wahoo, where do you fish?
You fish where the pretty water is. You want pretty water, and if you're out there trolling through the pretty water, looking for fish, once you start if you start marking bait, you stop. You need to fish there. If you're on your way to the fads and you're trolling your way out there and you mark bait 20 miles short of there, you stop and fish. Because bait's hard to come by in the winter out there. And it could be those offshore herrings, it could be the speedos, it could be squid. But if you find bait, if you can stay with the bait, you need to stay there. Because the fish are going, they'll come, it may be a little while, but they will eventually come to you. Water clarity. So why do we want clear water? Well, the pretty water is more nutrient rich. Well, the more nutrient rich it is, the more little bitty baits there are, the more bigger baits there are, the more the right size baits there are. And if there's the right size baits, the predator fish are coming. That's really the key to pretty water. It's not that they like the pretty water, they like the food supply in the pretty water. The dirty water doesn't hold as good a plankton resources for all the little bait fish. So pretty water, temperature, pretty water, bait are more important than the fads. Don't get, the fads are great because they will hold bait, and sometimes they'll hold bait in dirty water. So it's not bad to go check there, but I wouldn't, if the water's dirty and there's no bait, it's time to go. If you're at the fads and the water's dirty, but there's still plenty enough supply of bait, then I could stay.
All right, so I'm planning a fishing trip and I want to catch a wahoo. I'm going to just go troll the fads until I find one that has some life on it? Or am I gonna chunk? When do I chunk a fad? When do I, help me come up with a plan on how I want.
What's the ideal trolling speed?
There's a good question. What's the ideal trolling speed?
So I'm here 16 and my boat's just like this.
Oh, it's just burning fuel, not on plane. I hate that.
Yep. And there is, a tuna will catch, you can get bites on tuna up to probably about 8 knots. You can get bites on mahi probably up to about 10 or 12. And wahoos can catch it at 20. There's a lot of the guys especially they do a lot of the super high speed fishing on the East Coast, and some of them are fishing up to as much as 22 or 24 knots.
Which I will admit I've done that more often because I can just drive from spot to spot, dragging things fast.
Yeah. You're going to need probably at least a 36 ounce trolling lead and maybe as much as a 64. 64 would be 4 pounds. No, 5, 16, 30, yeah, 64 pounds. And, but typically I would say the best offshore speed is if I had to say, pick me one speed that I could do everything, about 6 or 7 knots. At 6 or 7 knots, I can drag pretty much any lure that I want to drag, and I can drag ballyhoo. Once we get over about 6 or 7 knots, 7 is tough. I mean, the ballyhoos will wash out really fast at anything 7 or more. So a lot of times I think I can go offshore fishing and only take 24 ballyhoos. If we're going to do any kind of speed fishing at all, I need to double or triple the amount of ballyhoos that we're going to carry.
And
What's the best speed for
the Yozuri Bonita?
So the party boats catch as many wahoo just about as any of the boats in the fleet, and most of them troll about 14, 15 knots.
And I think that's just because they're all trolling from spot to spot all the time, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of their cruise speed.
And
you
I think with the high speed stuff, I don't know, do you plan to get into that or?
We're going to go super much now.
I think it's cool. I mean, and for me, like if I am driving a long way to go, that's why I got big stuff in the first place. Because if I'm driving that way anyway, I may as well drag something off the back of the boat. I think if anything, I would use it to help locate fish. So like if I hook a big wahoo somewhere, okay, I probably hooked them there for a reason. Mark it, go back around, try again. I do think bigger fish, more consistent fish would be slow trolling a live bait or something like that in that same area. So I think it helps locate them.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. I use high-speed fishing to locate fish, but I would much rather real slow and or bump troll live baits for them, or ballyhoos for them, or actually stop and chunk fish. Yeah, you catch plenty of, I think there's as many wahoo caught slow trolling live baits, just like we would do for kings and tunas inshore. I think there's as many or more caught that way than traditional faster, that 6, 7, 8 knot trolling speed. I think I catch more at a much slower pace.
A big Missouri's about 14 to 16.
And plus, when we're live bait fishing, we can use much lighter tackle, which makes it much more fun to catch them. You know, when you get to catch a wahoo on that spinning rod right there, that's a trip.
It's fun to wash.
I mean, they run, they jump, they're all over the place. That's fun to fish with.
But I try to tell people, I'm like, hey, if I don't like people walking around the boat.
That's my tuna wahoo live bait fishing rig. I love this.
And it helps a lot too. And I think you've heard us talk about how to fight fish on light tackle anyway, but knowing how to fight a fish goes a long way. So on a 50 wide, you have a lot with the boat in gear. You have a lot less room for error, where you're just kind of cranking them into the boat a certain way. But standing still with your trolling motor down, fighting a wahoo on a spinning rod, there's a lot that can go wrong, but there's a lot of coaching and technique through it too, which is a whole nother conversation to have. So, all right, you got bait. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just like I told you about the quick rigging ballyhoo, most of these high-speed lures, that if you're going to troll these things above 10 knots, they have to be rigged correctly, or you're going to lose a lot of expensive lures. And there again, if you go on our Facebook page and type in rigging hard baits in the search mode, it'll come up with this whole little rigging thing right here, rigging wahoo hard baits. And it will go through a step-by-step on how to rig it, whether you're doing it with mono or with wire. I actually prefer mono because I think the lure runs better, but wire or mono doesn't matter. It's a matter of if you just...
Oh, that one's already... I was going to... Here, I can pass it one of those around.
Well, I'll see a lot of people get this lure out of the package and they take either the wire or the mono, put a sleeve on, run it through this little solid ring and crimp it. If you do that, you won't have this lure very long. You need a thimble to run on this, because these lures rattle and vibrate so much. Why don't we pass that around so they can see the... Without that, and the thimbles come in metal or plastic. I like the metal ones better because...
Look like I know what I'm doing.
I'm gonna send 3 thimbles around for everybody to look at. But the thimbles come and they're open. That's so you can slide them underneath the ring on the lure. Once you get it around the ring on the lure, we want to close that thimble up. The plastic thimble, you can't close it. So the plastic one and the regular thimble, there's going to be two metal ones that come around. One of the metal ones is open, one of them is closed. You can only close it once you put it on the lure. And you can see, you'll be able to see it on the lure that we took off Mark's rod.
So no swivel on that?
Generally, no. I think the swivel tangles real bad, and probably wouldn't be a problem in the wintertime, but in the summertime, that's just a grass collector. Last year we had a ton of grass, and the Weather Channel and everybody else tried to scare everybody to death this year and say we were going to have the worst year of sargasso weed ever. It's going to inundate all the beaches. And there was people back in May or April. There's people canceling vacations in June because the grass was going to be so bad. And this year, the entire Gulf of Mexico was almost devoid of grass. There's almost none. It's very disappointing. But yet, the world's coming to an end.
But real quick though, on your swivel question, I do run a swivel on my snap.
Yeah, on the line up here is fine.
So if anything does start twisting or that fish is acting funny on the way in, it will. Yeah, it is. It is from my leader straight to that.
There's a thimble on the top end, and that snap swivel on the rod just goes into the top. That one won't collect grass too bad, but that snap down there by the lure.
Yeah, just like that.
I think that one's just got a regular swivel. I think we broke the roller swivel, the ball bearing swivel off, and that's what we had handy close by.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got bait, we've got high speed, we've got slow speed trolling stuff.
We talked earlier about the baits. The Yozuri bonitas, the Nomad Mad Mac bonitas, any of the Nomad heavy lipped baits.
There's DTX.
You just want those trolling baits where they will be below, troll deep enough to be underneath that 6 or 8 or 10 feet of really cold water.
Question?
Mm-hmm.
Rule of thumb that you use to go up in pounds of weight per speed of boat. That one way or the other.
Repeat it so that people can.
Yeah. The question is, how much speed do you need? So how many pounds of lead do you need for very fast wahoo trolling? The big key is the lure needs to stay in the water. You can accomplish that in two ways. You can put it further behind the boat or put a bigger lead on. So long as the lure is spending at least 80% of the time in the water, you're fine. If your lure is spending 50% in the water and 50% it's jumping and skipping and rolling, you need to put it further behind the boat or put a bigger lead. But it's about keeping the bait in the water.
That's a good point you brought up. How far behind the boat are you running these?
There again, speed is everything. If we're at a very slow speed, from here to that boat with them red and white those motors on.
Wow, those are crazy motors.
That would probably be where my first rig is, and then my last one would probably be back there about the back wall.
Using a straight butt versus a bent butt's going to make a difference too.
Huge difference. You cannot high-speed troll with a straight butt. You're going to end up breaking a rod, and you got so much. The lure won't stay in the water. If you're going to high-speed troll, you have to have bent butts. But just running through here, Molecraft soft head lures, the Fathom lures. Go away.
Now, I like those fathoms, but I think there's that saying that the lure's made more for the fisherman than for the fish, right? Isn't that what you say?
The Black Bart Rum K Candy that's probably, and it comes in several different colors. That's one of the top Wahoo lures that we sell. All the charter boats drag those around. You know, there's no better, if you're going to run ballyhoo, there is no better lure to put in front of your ballyhoo than an Islander. You know, if I had, somebody come and said, okay, we're going to Costa Rica, we're going to Belize, we're going to the Bahamas, we're going to St. Thomas, Bermuda, wherever it is we're going to go. What do I need to take? Well, you need a blue and a white Islander. You need, why do you keep popping up? You need the black and orange soft head. You need a Mahi colored soft head. You need a plain cedar plug, and you need a red and white cedar plug. I can take those 6 lures, I can go troll anywhere in the world.
Isn't there some saying about destined captains too?
Oh yeah. They don't like us. If any of y'all ever go to Isla Mirada one day, pull into Bud and Mary's Marina and have Destin on your boat, you won't have any friends. They do not like us. It's because our guys are, our offshore guys, you know, Chase Lake won the last 10 years, a Destin boat has won the Triple Crown, probably 6 out of the last 10 or 12 years. And the Triple Crown winner comes from all over the world. I will put the Destin boats and the Orange Beach boats. We'll go fish anywhere in the world. We'll fish on your turf. We'll kick your ass. And why is that? It's not bragging. It's about pressure. We have the largest charter fleet in the world sitting here. We have more charter boats than Miami and Lauderdale combined. And it's that old New York song, New York, New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Well, Destin and Orange Beach are about equal in the number of charter boats they have. You have to be fishing the best techniques, the best hooks, the best line, best leader, best everything, and know what you're doing, or you're not going to be successful here, because there is so many people fishing and the pressure is so much. And that's, you know, you pull up to Bud and Mary's Marina and their boats go out and they fish all day long, and they come in and they got, which are nice, I mean, they got 20 yellowtails that look like this. And then one of the Destin boats pulls up down there for the day, and they go out there and they catch those yellowtails and they throw them in the live well, and they drive off another 14 or 15 miles to that big old ledge that sits out there, and they turn on their sonar with the relief shading, and they drive down that ridge and they go, oh, look at all those groupers right there. And they come back and they got 2 tubs of groupers, and all them people, all them charter guys at Bud and Mary's like, where'd y'all catch those? I went, I don't know, we went 20 miles out there. Y'all went 20 miles? You know, they go 4 miles and quit. You know, they throw over a bag of chum and some shrimp heads, and they start catching yellowtails.
So how many rods do you troll when you troll? However many you have? Which you can get more from half hitch. I'm just kidding.
So on that boat right there,
And lead, and 5 pounds of lead.
on that,
Yeah, there you go. The more rod holders you have on a boat, the better your chances are.
so on that
I don't work for any of these guys.
that 273 right there, if you have if you've got a good captain and 2 really good anglers, you can troll 4. If you have 1 good angler and 1 okay angler and a good captain, I think 3. Otherwise, you're going to have a cluster. Size of boat dictates how many, you know, as you go up, you go from a 27 to a 34-foot boat. Okay, we can probably troll 5 rods with 2 good anglers and a captain. But it's really about how many people you got that can man rods. Because one guy's got to be on the fish, and then the captain has to be, once the fish gets on, the captain has to put that fish on the inside of the circle, and the other guy's job is to, you want to leave everything out there for a little bit just to see if we can get a multiple hookup. But after we figured out, okay, we're not going to get a multiple hookup, then we need to get the unused stuff out of the water and get it out of the water as quick as we can, but still not make, not just pull it in, throw it in the boat. Pull it up, wrap it up, put this rod away, so when the fighting time gets down and the fish is close to the boat, we don't have rigs just laying everywhere. That's a good way to get hurt.
And I think too, a lot of it is experience. Like I think a lot of guys haven't really done it before. And the more you do it, and then when you have one on, you'll probably lose it because there's so much happening at once. With a fish on the end, the boat's in gear, there's people who don't know what's going on, and it happens on my boat all the time. And I used to get upset about losing fish, but honestly, I think it's safe to say I lose at least a snapper. I lose a fish every single day. So like I used to get upset about it, and we still, I mean, whether somebody rips the jaw off of a fish or we reel in a hook.
We bust off that day we caught the wahoo after we went deep water.
But I don't even get mad anymore because like it will happen. But the more experience you have and the more fish that you hook, all that stuff irons itself out. But the big point is to just go do it.
Yeah. I mean, I run a 29 Everglades for one of my clients, and he has 2 little boys and a little girl. We were out there the last day we fished during the rodeo. We had a great day. I mean, we caught a ton of fish. Everybody got their certificates and little awards and fishing poles. We went through a brand new pack of Owner Mutu Light 7-aughts.
Oh, here we go.
There are 27 hooks in that pack, and we used every single hook.
You went through like 16 of my brand new pack, and I look at you and I'm like, and he runs the tackle shop.
Wait a minute.
And
I didn't, because I didn't catch anything. I sat there.
Because you lost them all.
I drove, I hooked, I retied y'all's rigs, I put y'all's baits on. Now I hooked it and handed you the rod, because my back's too bad. I don't fight anything anymore. I sit over there and I hook something up. I go, Mark.
Tim gets off the boat and I'm like, man, do we have any hooks left? He's like, no, you're gonna have to come by the shop and get some more. All right, so we've got high speed stuff, we've got regular trolling speed stuff. You talked about speeds, bait, chunking. You talked a little bit about locations. Yeah. What else are we missing?
So, live bait rig. We need to be rigging this stuff on, for our live bait stuff. You kind of have to make a choice. If you're really wanting tunas and mahis, you need to stick with 60 or 80 pound fluorocarbon. If you really want wahoos, we got to go to 90 pound wire. If you go to 90 pound wire, you're not going to catch as many mahi and you're not going to catch as many tunas. But if you don't go to wire, you're going to lose a lot of baits and rigs and stuff to the wahoo. So you kind of have to make a decision on what you want to catch, and maybe it's in the morning we're going to really try to get our tunas and mahis, and in the afternoon we're going to go for some wahoos, because you do have to fish different.
And what are your opinions on this? Because this is what I do near shore in state water. I'll start fluoro, and when I start losing hooks, and it's different trolling around, I think, but at least chunking and chumming and drifting baits over certain areas, I can get away with it, because if I go through 2 or 3 circle hooks on fluoro, and then I'm like, okay, I guess I need some wire, and I can put it on, which is different from trolling.
I think it's the same thing if you're going to go out there and live bait troll around the rig, around the fads. I would start off with my fluoro or mono rigs, and if I start getting cut off and noticing that there's more wahoos there today than there are tunas and dolphin, then put on some wire.
Now I'm asking this for a friend. What happens if you're on a fad and you are vertical jigging and you go through like 16 slow pitch jigs?
Well,
because they get bit off every time you drop one in the water, and it takes you that long to realize that it's not working. God, I went through so many jigs. I mean, my friend did. But at least I was getting, I'd rather get the bite, you know, and get luck like we did with the Wahoo on that. I'd rather get the bite and know that they're there and that I'm doing something right and then adjust than to be on a spot like this time of year especially where I think there might be tuna on it and I've got wire and I'm not getting any bites. I'm like, well, I wonder if I was using Flora if I'd get a bite.
So I think slow pitch out there around the fads is a great way to catch all three of the target species. Now, this jig here that I got rigged up, it's just on its regular assist hooks. This is rigged up for snappers, groupers, jacks, or whatever. If we're gonna mahi, if we're gonna go out there and use jigs around the rigs or fads, we need to put wire traces on our assist hooks. And then just above the lure, about 6 inches, we need about a 6-inch piece of wire here, because that's a $20 lure, and you drop it down there, you drop it down 100 feet, and you go whoop.
And realistically, more so than getting a jig back with the hook missing, the jig's gone.
Yeah.
So I think normally, especially at the size of those fish, they'll inhale that jig. And I mean, my leaders just get shorter and shorter throughout the course of a trip.
You need a 6. The jig doesn't have as much, I'm not going to argue with anybody. Does the wire take away from some of the action of the jig? Yes. But
it's a reaction bite.
yeah.
I mean, if you're traditional, well, and this is a pet peeve of mine where people, and I don't want to get into a jigging thing because slow pitch jigging and I've got a strong opinion on all that stuff. I am a jigger. I love to do that. That's a style of fishing that I like. But do I think I could catch a fish on a jig on the bottom?
No.
Yeah. Yes. I think no question about it, with the right jig on this, using this rod the right way, I could do it. Would I want to? No, of course not. But with that, I mean, you said slow pitch. Are you slow pitch jigging it? Are you fast jigging it? Are you ripping that thing through the water column? I think it's a reaction bite. I
think on a given day, I think I'm gonna start off slow pitching, and if I don't get a bite, but I'm seeing fish on TV, then I'm gonna go to a quicker pace, and if I'm still not getting fish, then I'm gonna go to a really fast pace and just figure out what they want today. I think in the cooler water, they're gonna like it a little bit slower than they are a little bit faster. But you need if you just try one thing,
No.
you can be very unsuccessful.
Completely agree.
But these little wire traces, if you try to twist these by hand, they are very, very difficult. We sell a tool, it's made by Toit, T-O-I-T. Little tools are I think they're about 30 bucks. It is the best haywire twist tool you've ever seen. Come by the shop, get any one of the guys. I thought I had mine in my bag, and I think Mark took it out and put it on his boat.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. But it is a great little tool for making these little wire traces. It's the best haywire tool you've ever used. It's about $35. It's worth every penny. But come by the shop, ask any one of the guys. We have pairs out for display. Show you how it works. Super quick and easy. This is number 12.
What is your opinion on solid wire versus stranded wire?
For this, I like solid wire better. If I was making true live bait rigs, I kind of like braided wire better because I think you get a lot more action. But on this, it tangles too bad with braided wire. You get a lot
and then you're done.
Yeah.
Once you get that kink in there.
Yep.
T-O-I-T.
T-O-I-T. But I want everybody to go out there and try this winter wahoo dolphin tuna fishing. It's cold. Don't give me, you need boots, you need slickers, you need a good pair of bibs. Don't try to do this Just don't, let's not go run out there. And what is really nice about it is you'll leave here in the morning and it'll be 32 degrees and you're freezing, and you get to the fads and it's only 48, but you can strip down
And you get
to your
sunburn.
t-shirt and shorts because that water out there is still so warm. It's not, that water out there is going to stay warm, and it will feel much warmer around the boat. Once you get out there, you can get down to t-shirts and a short real easy. And it'll be in the, it still may not even be hardly in the 50s.
And I always feel bad on the boat because in the morning, I mean, to get from my house to the boat ramp, like all my foulies are on the boat, and I show up at the boat ramp, launch the boat, everything's happy, people are walking down to the boat, and they're like, oh, you're in shorts and a t-shirt. Once we get on the boat, I start pulling on bibs and jackets and all that for the ride because it's chilly. But I came from up north. I like the cold. Like I love this. I love fishing this time of year because it's not so hot. Like you're not just dripping sweat standing there waiting for a bite. Like it's pleasant, it's comfortable, your beer's extra cold. It's just everything's better and the bite is good.
No, it's not. It's not better.
I have a picture of Tim last winter from my boat that I won't show you guys, but it's Winter Tim is what I call it. It's just a picture it's a picture of his two favorite fingers pointing at me. And he was wearing my jacket, but facing him. So like the hood was over his head and his arms were in the sleeves.
And I had my jacket on under it.
Oh. All right, well, do you guys have questions? What do you guys want to know?
They start at 62 for the first one.
And that was how far out were the fads, just for people listening.
Yeah, the question was how far are the fads? Closest one's 62, the furthest one's 85.
You're not going down.
But
It's
up until about January, you don't have to go that far. Just offshore the edge, 25, 30 miles, the fish get progressively further off through the winter, but you can fish right there offshore the edges in that 25 to 40 mile range, definitely all the way up into January.
And it's funny too, because when you get out there, if you haven't been to the fads, when you get out there, like you're expecting like something, and you're like, it's good, there's fish around, but you get there and there's just like a little can sitting on the water, like it's just water in every direction, but like a little tiny can sitting there, and you're like, that's it? And you're like, all right, well, yeah, get ready, because you're gonna lose 65 slow pitch jigs over the next couple minutes.
That's all it is. Now there's 30 feet of it below the water, but there's only 6 or 8 feet sticking out of the water. Do not tie up to the fads. They got 3 they got to put, or there was 3 off station. I think they've got 1 back out there now, but people tie off to them all the time, bust them off. Don't tie up to the fads.
Yes, sir.
I mean, is it better to target wahoo on the bigger schools than the black? Would you mix up, try to go for both at the same time, or you pretty much targeted? I'm going wahoo fishing today, and because I generally I'm looking at my tackle box. I can only pull 2 or 3 lines. I got 3 hours patrol. Where do I start?
And just for people listening, the question was about like with fishing solo or fishing with your kids, what do you choose to fish for? Like, how do you, like, can you do multiple things? Can you do, and the thing is, like, as a captain running my boat, I feel like in the morning, because I've got a Everglades with a tower, so do I want to go tarpon fish in summer? Do I want to snapper fish, grouper, topwater amberjack? Do we want to mahi fish on fly? Like, what do we want to do today? Do we want to go troll for this? And I feel like there's always that choice of like, if it's slow for a few minutes, do I go try something different or try to do too much in one day? And sometimes it's like and luckily I can ask the guys like, what do you want to catch? Because if somebody's like, I want to catch mahi, I'm like, I will try for 8 hours to find your mahi. But halfway through it, are you going to look at me and go, hey, I want to go catch a snapper because we know they're probably going to bite? So for me, it's a tough call of like, okay, if I want a tuna, and you and I do this a lot on my boat, we're like, what do we want to catch? And we're like, tunas. And we're like, all right, 20 minutes into the tuna fishing, when we don't have one, we're like, screw this, let's go catch something different. Like, this is never going to work.
But to answer your question, I would put 2 wahoo lures close to the boat, stick a tuna rig. Littlest lure I had, way, way, way behind the boat.
And he's probably going to catch wahoo on that little tiny one and not the big one.
Yeah. Whenever you're tuna fishing, I think the ratio is 5-to-1 bonita to tuna. Yep, that's just part of it. They travel together. Tunas are more aggressive, or bonitas are more aggressive. It's a 3 to 5-to-1 ratio.
And I think it's funny too, because the lures are obviously designed to look like something. But when you start catching fish, and I say this every seminar too, cut that fish open and look at what he's been eating, and I think you'll be shocked at the size of the baits that they're eating. So like, especially when I do certain state water stuff and we're dropping down live baits, okay, yeah, of course we'll eventually catch something big, but then we'll catch like a huge one and I'll fillet him open, look at him, and he's eating something like this big. So we'll drop to these little tiny baits and we're catching these gigantic fish. So it's interesting too, I mean, if you're keeping them for whatever reason, look and see what they're eating, because I'm pretty sure that, I mean, match the hatch, you know, is that what you just said? Match the hatch. I always find that interesting. And I always kind of change a little bit of what we do based on what I find in their stomachs anyway.
When you're chunking for tunas, I'm telling you, live shrimp work great.
I mean, that's what they grew up eating. Like they spawn
You cut
near
a tuna
shore.
open,
Yeah.
it's going to be full of them little rock shrimp, offshore rock shrimp. We can't get rock shrimp at the store, but we can get regular live shrimp, and they eat them just fine. I think Kayla's got a bunch of goodies to give away over here.
She said, yes, you are. Do you guys have any more questions before we? You want this? Okay. As long as Megan's not here with her prank names that she puts on here. Yeah, I got some. I'll throw some of these buffs out too.
Start with a legendary hat. How about that? That's a special one.
Yeah.
And this is going to.
Michael Burton.
Congratulations, sir. That will look mighty fine on you. All right, the next prize, let's do a pelagic buff with a legendary shirt. How about that?
You got it.
All right, let's go with those two together, and this is going to be for
Stephen L. Lubis? Oh. And grab one of those. You got it.
let's go with another legendary shirt. This is going to go to
Larry Lipker. All right. What's that in the shirt you said?
Yeah.
There you go. I want a picture of you with a wahoo in that shirt. Or you have to give it back. It'd be covered in blood. It'd be gross.
On over here who comes in with blood every day on their shirts.
That's it.
OxyClean. OxyClean. Soak it for a few hours. It'll take almost anything out. Soak him for almost a few hours.
You'd be disappointed if I came home clean. You'd go, ooh, bad day. Let's just kill a pinfish at the dock and rub it on the hat. And a buff? All right. Keith. Keith A. I'm not even going to try on a lot of, oh, it's, yeah. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
All right, we got 3 more shirts and a buff. Yes.
Y'all
Matching Wahoo picture now. It's
they
changed.
stuffed the ballot box.
Oh, sorry.
Pelagic buff here. This is going to go to Parker Rothman.
Yeah.
Parker, good job.
Yeah.
And then
One more shirt.
there we go.
Nice.
This is a page. Oh, good job. You even got that right. Oh.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thank y'all all so much.
This will be our last one for the year, of course, but we'll be back starting up in February, and we'll get the schedule out sometime there in early January, let everybody know what we're doing. Everybody have, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, be safe, have fun. We'll see all y'all in the spring. Thanks so much for coming out and supporting us every month.
Thanks, guys.